Willkommen in einem aufregendes video. Welcome to another exciting video, in this case episode 31 of my figure gaming video series. In this video, I'll be covering DBM troop types and basing. This will also apply to DBA and DBMM, but is specifically designed for DBM version 3.4 rules or the DBM version 3.2 rules, freely available on the WRG website, and of course the version 3.3 and 3.4 updates available elsewhere. I'll provide a link at the end of the video for anyone interested in these rules. The main objective of this video is that I wanted to ensure I based some new ancients correctly. While I know the most popular set of ancient rules currently being played in the UK is ADLG by a wide margin, I've selected DBM as I'm more familiar with those rules. If we include DBMM, DBM and DBA in 2020, we get a number which is very close to ADLG, 180 versus 194 specifically. ADLG is clearly growing while the DBX community is not, at least for competition play. I may create a video analysing why, but I suspect the main reason is the rules are easier to learn and play. That is, ADLG are easier to learn and play. While I most certainly intend to use my ancient figures for DBM, DBMM and possibly DBA games, I have to also admit my main focus is using a board game to figure game conversion, specifically the SPI pre-stag system. The only reason is these rules are very simple. They simulate historical battles about as well as any other set of rules, as that was their main initial focus, and they are easy to learn and teach new players. But whatever I do, I need to ensure my ancients are based using a commonly used basing system, thus this video. Incidentally, my pre-stag conversion uses the DBMM army list and all their troop types, so there is going to be a fairly close correlation between those sets of rules. Thus, the focus on DBM, DBMM. The DBX troop type and basing system is, to put it mildly, complex but rich and complete. Back in the old days, many ancient rules used a much simpler system, such as open order, order and close order, to depict density, and then the troop types, such as cavalry, infantry, etc. On top of this, you get light, medium, heavy, shield, and then the weapons, spear, sword, etc. This worked, but many combinations never existed in real life, and in some ways this open-ended approach resulted in confusion concerning defining troop types. DBX seem to use a system based on the overall troop types rather than such an open-ended but deterministic process. So, spear-armed troops would always typically be close order and possess a shield. Pike-armed troops would also be close order and either possess a shield, armour, or the pikes themselves would give them protection. Initially, I did not like this system, but the more I studied the army list, the more I came to a realisation it actually decreased definitional issue, even if from the surface it looks rather complex. As a result, I'll be using some terms which may not be clear when discussing basing, but will become clearer when I move into the troop type definitions. If we use 15mm figures, DBM, and of course DBA, DBMM, use an element width of 4 centimetres. The most common depth is 1.5 centimetres for spear, pike and other blades, other warbands, basically close order troops. Personally, I always use a depth of 2 centimetres. It simply looks better, but the rules are the rules, and that's what I'll mainly focus on. Incidentally, some figures simply don't fit on a 1.5 centimetre deep base, so that is probably the main reason why I went the 2 centimetre depth. The other infantry type or foot type depth is 2 centimetres, which it covers blades, fast or exceptional, warbands, fast, auxilia, bowmen, pizzoli, and exceptional artillery. This would be the older order or open order troops. Now we move into the mounted troops or cavalry, which are all, or mainly, 3 centimetres deep. These are knights, cavalry, light horse, cavalry, and hordes, the last being infantry, so maybe is not really a mounted troop type, but it uses the same base depth. The final common troop types are elephant, chariots, and expendable artillery, unless exceptional or on wagons, and baggage. This troop type has a depth of 4 centimetres. The next factor to consider is the number of figures on each element, or base. Light horse and Pisoli are all based 2 figures per element. These are the open order or skirmish troops. Now we move into basing, which involves 3 figures per element. These are the older order troop class. This includes most knights or cavalry, regular cavalry, blade-armed infantry, which are fast and exceptional, fast warbands, and irregular auxilia and bowmen. The next class is close order troops, or at least what I call close order troops, and they're all based 4 figures per element and consist of exceptional, knights, spears, pikes and other blades, regular auxilia, other warbands, regular bowmen and exceptional artillery and cattle herds. I'm not going to be covering the non-standard troops very much in this video, such as hordes, but as you can see they do use a very variable figure density, so it's probably more or based on the user or player preference. In DBM and DBMM, this shows the list of troop types, which can be of one of 5 grades, ranging from superior, ordinary, inferior, fast and exceptional. The troops are also classed as regular or irregular. As you can see, this is a rather complex system, but it is a very detailed troop type classification system, which seems to cover all the troops used in combat during the period the rules cover, and the period is a very long period. Within each troop type, you may have as many as 5 troop grades, with 3 standard grades, superior, ordinary, inferior, 2 special grades, fast and exceptional. Most older rules would use veteran, trained and levy. However, I understand why the name change. Veteran can mean different things to different people and can cause major arguments, but superior is a more vague definition. Thus, the definition of the rule is more important. You could call it grade 1 to grade 3, but the superior ordinary infantry titles work incredibly well, and I've actually adopted it for my other board game to figure game conversions, as I think it really actually clarifies things more than using the old trained, veteran, etc. The 2 special grades cover, well, special cases. These are called fast and exceptional. Finally, all troops can be either regular or irregular, which affects their ability to follow orders. The 3 main grades, superior, ordinary, infantry, grades each troop type, as can be seen with the elephants here. In the elephants' case, the difference is all about size and supporting troops. The exception grade is used to describe, well, exceptions, in this case, bolt shooters on elephants. Knights is a rather complex troop type and spans full-plated medieval knights, some chariots, and Alexander's companions. While I originally felt this level of simplification was going overboard, I do understand why they did it. Many of these exceptional troop types group in here very well, and they are rather exceptional. Thus, creating a whole troop class just for them probably represents overkill or more complexity. I must admit, I think I would probably prefer a special chariot class, but so be it. The only issue with this grouping, or this simplified grouping, is when armies from different periods meet, you get some rather unusual cases. My Alexandrian companions meet non-Sith chariots equally. However, I expect that if you stayed within periods, this is perfectly acceptable. So, once again, one thing I tend to do with ancients, I don't like wildly different periods facing each other. I personally don't think it works. The simplest description of this troop type, as distinct from standard cavalry, is the cavalry is armoured in some manner. However, as you can see here, there are lots of exceptions that you need to deal with. Cavalry, much simpler, a standard cavalry ranging from superior, ordinary, inferior. Ignoring the regular versus irregular, the main effect of these 3 grades is when they meet each other. You don't want classical Athenian Greek cavalry meeting late Byzantine lance-armed cavalry, for example. Light horse also spans a wide range of troops, with the expected superior, ordinary, inferior, but also include one for the special grade of fast, which depicts specially trained and armed horse archers. Superior means the light horses are bow-armed, ordinary means the light horses is javelin-armed, mainly. Inferior means the light horses are scouts on camel, asses or deers. Troops rode deers? Good lord. Cavalry gets its own troop type with the standard superior, ordinary, inferior. There are exceptional cavalry, which are a real exception, camels disguised as elephants. While we have covered many chariots in the knight troop type, and again, I really wish there was a special chariot troop type, but anyway, this still works. The Sith chariot are considered as expendable chariots and thus are in this special category here. Now we move into the foot category. The first troop type of spear, and we have obviously the standard superior, ordinary and inferior. One aspect of this troop classification system is how morale, type and training all merge together. So Spartan hoplites are superior and most other professional hoplites are ordinary, and citizen hoplites are inferior. There's no need to worry about determining if classical Athenian hoplites are superior or inferior to Theban hoplites in the most part. In most cases, you can quickly and easily classify a troop class based on historical evidence into one of these troop type groupings. The next foot troop type is pike armed, superior, ordinary, inferior, but also an exceptional grade. Exceptional pike are those which have a front rank of pavis. I'm uncertain why they are here rather than spears, but I'm certain there is a reason. Now we come to blades, which initially means Roman legionnaires and all sword-armed troops. This is also a complex troop type, with both special grades being used. Fast covers loose formation sword-armed troops and exceptional armed with special anti-armour weapons. Now we move into the barbarian infantry or war bands. This is broken up into superior, ordinary and inferior. Auxilia is an interesting troop type. In the most part, these would be the so-called order troops of many older sets of ancient rules, base 3 to a base. However, as with other troop types, a lot more is being grouped in with these troops, and this includes almost, a lot of skirmish troops, such as pelters, for example. When regular, they are close order. When irregular, they are standard order or 3 per base. Bowmen, like Auxilia, group a lot of different troops into this troop type. Regular are close order or 4 per base. Irregular are standard order or 3 to base. Superior will fight in hand-to-hand and inferior will not. The final bowman class is exceptional, which includes mixed troop types, front rank armed with pipe and spear and rear ranks armed with bowmen. I like the way exceptional is used to cover all these fringe cases. However, the result is so many special rules. It's often hard to remember them all. Luckily, an army typically only possesses few exceptional troop types, so the special rules are manageable. Now we come to skirmishers or passoli. Superior are javelin armed and with a shield. Ordinary are bow, sling, crossbow or staff sling armed. Inferior are javelin or dart armed with no shield. Well, that covers all the basic troop types, roughly their basing. And one question we may need to ask us is, why should we use the DBX troop classification as our default system for basing and creating an ancients army? The main reason is the army list. Perhaps the most valuable IP for the DBX series of rules is its army lists. Even if you do not agree with them, everyone agrees it's one of the most complete and detailed army lists available in the market. Thus, whether they admit it or not, other rules do take note of the DBX army lists when they create their own rules. Thus, if you create armies based on the DBX army lists, you can't really go wrong. However, for those interested, there is another troop type system which you can look at, which is the SPI pre-stag system, which is one I'm basing, it's the conversion that I'm doing at the present moment, that is converting this board game into a figure gaming format. These are very old rules and almost certainly predates WRG 7th edition or even 6th edition, so take that into note. In pre-stags, troops are all classed by a letter, so starting with Class A, we're talking about close order infantry, ranging from militia infantry all the way up to professional pikemen and some specialist troops as well. Class B were the blade-armed troops, which is interesting that pre-stag kind of already had the classification of blade all the way back in the early 70s. Cavalry, which is Class C, C for cavalry, is broken down into light and heavy, with heavy being armoured. Class D were specialist troop types such as Viking fleet, elephants and chariots. Class E are your leaders, and the rules break up leaders into 6 basic classes, 1L up to 6L. 5L and 6L are special classes only used for Egypt, so really it uses 4 grades of commanders. Class F are missile troops ranging from skirmishers, bowmen and firearms. Class M was special cavalry, all armed with bow and early artillery. This system is good as any, but there are minimal army lists. The only army lists are those which were involved in specific battles covered, of which there are about 64 battles in all in the rules. You can see how all these troop types quickly fit into a DBX system with really minimal issues. As an example, let's build up a Carthaginian army, starting with the core troops. Starting with pony or Libyan cavalry, these are regular, cavalry, ordinary, and up to 4 elements are allowed, as you can see here. Pony cavalry, excuse my pronunciation, is comparatively easy to define, and the image on the left is probably likely correct. The image in the centre is based on an image on a vase. Libyan cavalry is a bit harbour. On the right is a Libyan cavalryman, also based on an image on a vase. In DBM, they are similar troop types. This is an example of why the DBM classification system works. A more complex system may define phony as spear-armed and Libyan as javelin-armed. Under DBM, it doesn't matter. As long as they're designed to melee, they are all cavalry. Next troop type is Numidian mercenary cavalry. These are irregular, light horse, ordinary, and from 6 to 8 elements are allowed. The image on the left is probably a reasonably accurate image of a Numidian horseman based on the hairstyle in particular. Phoni citizen infantry are regular, spear inferior, or regular auxilia ordinary, and up to 8 elements are permitted. The phony citizen infantry were not commonly used far from Carthage, and these images probably provide a reasonable description of this troop type. Libyan spearmen, regular, spear ordinary, and from 8 to 16 elements are permitted. This troop type most likely represents standard Libyan infantry and not veteran Libyan infantry, which Hannibal equipped with Roman equipment, so the drawing in the centre is most likely the most accurate. The image on the left and right most likely represent veteran Libyan infantry. Libyan, Moorish or Numidian mercenary javelin are regular or irregular, Pasoli, superior, and from 6 to 12 elements are permitted. The image on the left is supposedly a Numidian javelin, on the right a Libyan javelin. This represents the basic troop types which a player would have to purchase, 12 mounted elements and 36 foot elements, which is a reasonable force mix to purchase. The army list which I described, or the force mix, does not include allied or mercenary troops which the Carthaginians used in various campaigns or theatres of war, so Hannibal in Italy would get a number of other troop types such as Gauls and Spanish troops. I'm not going to go into any great detail of how to build up a Carthaginian army. I was just showing you an example of how you would basically use the army list to create your force mix. So, in summary, I feel DBM, DBMM or DBX does a very good job at troop classification. I remember in the past when rules required modifications for shields, which include size and thickness, and the endless arguments over whether a troop type had a large shield thick enough for hand-to-hand combat or not. All those arguments are removed as we simply lack that level of detail, and I can tell you now I'm really glad that we don't have to worry about that minutiae anymore. Since I originally created this video, I went down the path of converting pre-stags into what I call P17CW using DBMM army lists. And this shows what is effectively a DBMM force mix, 200 points on the left, 400 points on the right, which could be used for a DBMM game, or alternatively what I call a P17CW game, which is pre-stags. As you can see here, the army lists work quite well, and I can use them for multiple rules. In retrospect, when I was involved many years ago designing a set of ancient rules, perhaps I should have tried to design it in such a way that it used the WRG army list perfectly rather than trying to create my own conversion. But anyway, that's all water under the bridge. And so this concludes episode 31 of my figure gaming hobby series of videos, in this case covering DBM and DBMM, troop types and basing. Alle guten Dinge kommen zu einem Ende.